Zach Banter, aka Big Bant, lived on the north side of town. He didn't have a car and his parents couldn't drive him to youth group on Wednesday nights, so each week different students from his high school took turns picking him up and dropping him off.
Through the support of the community and the kindness of Todd, his youth pastor, Zach experienced the love of Jesus and eventually committed his life to follow him. Zach found a second home at the church and started working as a basketball coach and as an assistant at the church's Christian Activity Center.
Unfortunately, Zach's story ended tragically, with him passing away in a car crash about a year after these changes. But his life is a testament to the impact that a youth group can have and to how those who are impacted can then impact others.
Youth workers, including youth pastors, coaches, teachers, directors, and people in so many other roles, are a key piece of passing on the faith to the next generation. In fact, research from the Fuller Youth Institute found that when young people have at least 5 adults who are investing in their spiritual lives, the odds of that faith sticking increase significantly.
But there's also data to suggest that in most cases, it is parents and caregivers who ultimately have the greatest impact on their teen's spiritual formation, either by modeling the importance of faith or the lack thereof.
After studying the spiritual lives of young people for 2 decades, Dr. Christian Smith and Dr. Amy Adamczyk wrote in their book, Handing Down the Faith, that the single most powerful causal influence on the religious lives of American teenagers and young adults is the religious lives of their parents. Not their peers, not the media, not their youth group leaders or clergy, not their religious school teachers. Myriad studies show that, beyond a doubt, the parents of American youth play the leading role in shaping the character of their religious and spiritual lives, even well after they leave home and often for the rest of their lives.
This means that in order to make the maximum possible impact on the next generation, youth ministry leaders should do whatever they can to involve parents in the process of their children's faith formation.
We know this isn't easy. Some parents and caregivers clearly prefer to delegate spiritual discussions to church leaders who seem like the experts. This may be because the parents feel unprepared to talk to their kids about faith, don't prioritize it much in their own lives, or just feel generally exhausted and don't know how to fit things in.
But just looking at the math reveals that while the average youth pastor only has about 40 hours a year to spend with students, the average parent has around 3,000 hours with their child.
We see the same principle reflected in the Bible. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, Moses is explaining to Israel the importance of passing on God's commandments to the next generation. Verse 7 says, "Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads."
In other words, the everyday moments, not just the significant mountaintop events, are ripe for faith formation. And while youth workers can help kickstart these conversations, it is the caregivers, when they're in transit with their kids or spending time together at the end of the day, or just generally going through the mundane parts of life as a family, who have the most opportunities for conversation.
So what does it look like practically for youth workers to equip parents and caregivers for these conversations? Here are 3 ideas.
First, send kids home with conversation prompts to ask their parents. Part of the challenge for some parents is knowing how to begin spiritual conversations in ways that don't feel forced. But this can be preempted if the kids initiate. By equipping kids with good questions, there's potential for some significant conversations that may not have happened otherwise.
Some examples might be, what are some ways you connect with God? Or what do you think about Jesus? Why? Questions like these give parents the opportunity to share why following Jesus is important to them. And even if caregivers aren't active in your church, encouraging conversations about faith still has important benefits for a young person's spiritual growth.
Second, create a parent newsletter for your youth group. Youth pastors can use this to preview upcoming topics and send follow-up questions home with parents and caregivers. Some parents might prefer a heads up so they can think a little about their answers in advance, and a newsletter could be an easy way to accomplish that. Plus, by informing caregivers more broadly about the discussions and events at youth group, they'll be better equipped to water the seeds that get planted there.
Third, offer opportunities for parents to help at every turn. We've already alluded to this, but parents today are extremely busy. If there's only one opportunity to help out each quarter, it has to be at the exact perfect time for parents to be available. But if there are numerous opportunities, it's more likely that parents and caregivers will be able to get involved.
There will always be times when a parent has said something 100 times to their kids, but then a youth worker says it once and it clicks like a brand new idea. As frustrating as that can be for parents, sometimes kids just need confirmation that things are true from outside their family bubble. But by the same token, we could ask, would the youth worker's guidance have landed if those parents hadn't tilled the ground first?
The long and short of it is that youth workers get to play an incredible role, but in most cases, completely outsourcing faith formation to them isn't an effective way to disciple teens. Youth workers get to be a key part of the faith development for so many young people, but they shouldn't have to go it alone. And after all, if the ultimate goal is making an impact on the next generation, partnering with parents and caregivers wherever possible is what will lead to the maximum possible impact.